Captain Sarah Chun had always known that the cockpit of an F-35 Lightning II was where she belonged. The sleek fighter jet responded to her touch like a living thing, every control surface an extension of her will. But as she walked across the tarmac at Nellis Air Force Base in the pre-dawn darkness, she could hear the whispers following her like shadows. The SA-20 missile site appeared on Sarah's display as a cluster of green diamonds, each representing a component of the deadly air defense system. The surveillance radar was already active, its beams sweeping across the sky in steady patterns, while the engagement radar remained dormant, waiting for a target worthy of its attention. Sarah's F-35 flew at 35,000 feet, high enough to see the curvature of the Earth, but low enough to maintain clear communication with her flight. The aircraft's advanced sensors painted a detailed picture of the battlefield below, showing not just the immediate threat, but the complex web of overlapping defenses that protected the target area. Angel-02, I'm seeing multiple acquisition radars coming online, Martinez reported from her right wing. They know someone's out here. Copy that, Sarah replied, her voice calm despite the adrenaline beginning to flow through her system. Stay loose and keep your eyes open. Phoenix, status on the northern site. Angel-03 has the northern SAM site locked. 2 launchers, fully loaded. I can take the shot on your command. Sarah checked her tactical display one more time. The mission window was narrow. They had exactly 8 minutes before the strike package reached the initial point and committed to their attack run. If the air defenses weren't suppressed by then, the F-16s and B-1s would be flying into a death trap. All Angel flights, this is Angel-01. We're going to hit them fast and hard. Phoenix, take your shot in 30 seconds. Martinez, and I will take the primary site. Rookie, maintain high cover and call out any airborne threats. The next few seconds stretched like hours as Sarah lined up her shot. The SA-20 system below had no idea that 4 of the world's most advanced stealth fighters were bearing down on it. The engagement would happen at beyond visual range, using precision-guided weapons that could strike targets from dozens of miles away. Angel-03, Fox 3. Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio as she fired her first missile. The AMRAAM air-to-air missile, repurposed for surface attack, streaked away from her aircraft at Mach 4, its active radar seeker already locked onto the northern missile site. Angel-01, Fox 3. Sarah squeezed the trigger, sending her own missile toward the primary SA-20 site. The weapon dropped away from her aircraft and ignited its rocket motor, accelerating toward its target with mechanical precision. For 20 seconds, the 4 F-35s maintained their positions, watching as their weapons closed the distance to their targets. Sarah's helmet display showed the missile's progress as a moving dot, racing across the digital landscape toward its destination. Multiple detonations. Northern site is neutralized, Rodriguez reported. I'm seeing secondary explosions from the missile storage area. Primary site is down, Sarah confirmed as her own missile found its mark. That's 2 sites suppressed. Martinez, we need to... The warning tone in her headset cut her off mid-sentence. Her aircraft's radar warning receiver had detected an emission from an enemy fire control radar, and the computer was frantically trying to determine the source and threat level. Angel Flight, I have multiple bandits bearing 270, range 40 miles, and closing fast. Johnson's voice carried the edge of panic that came with the pilot's first real air-to-air engagement. 4 contacts, probable MiG-29s. Sarah's training took over, her mind automatically calculating intercept courses and weapon engagement zones. The enemy fighters have been lurking beyond the range of the F-35 sensors, using the terrain to mask their approach. Now, they were closing rapidly, try to catch the American fighters while they were focused on the ground targets. Angel Flight, tactical spread. Phoenix, continue with the SAM suppression. Martinez, you're with me on the bandits. Rookie, maintain your position and support as needed. The next 30 seconds would determine the outcome of the entire mission. Sarah rolled her F F-35 into a diving turn, using gravity to help accelerate toward the incoming enemy fighters. Her aircraft stealth characteristics would make it difficult for the MiG-29s to lock onto her, but at close range, stealth became less effective. Her radar painted the 4 enemy fighters as red diamonds on her display, showing their altitude, airspeed, and heading. They were flying in a loose formation, climbing rapidly to meet the American aircraft at their own altitude. Sarah's computer calculated the merge point, the moment when both formations would pass through each other's position, and displayed it as a flashing circle on her screen. Angel-01 has a lock on the lead bandit, she reported, her thumb moving to the weapon selection switch on her throttle. Range 32 miles and closing. Angel-02 locked on the trailer, ready to engage on your call. This was the moment that separated good pilots from great ones. Sarah had to balance multiple factors: the timing of her shot, the position of her wingman, the threat from the remaining enemy fighters, and the overall mission timeline. One mistake could result in a mid-air collision, a missed shot that would allow the enemy to close to visual range, or a fratricide incident that would end careers. Angel Flight, standby, Fox 3. Sarah's first missile left the rail at exactly the same moment as Martinez's, the 2 AMRAAMs racing toward their targets at hypersonic speed. The enemy fighters continued their climb, apparently unaware that death was approaching at over 3,000 miles per hour. Angel-01, Splash 1 Bandit, Martinez called out as his missile found its target. The enemy fighter simply disappeared from the radar scope, eliminated by the precision of American technology and training. Sarah's own missile was 3 seconds behind, and she watched tensely as the enemy formation began to react to the attack. The lead MiG-29 suddenly broke left in a desperate evasive maneuver, pulling enough G-forces to stress the limits of both aircraft and pilot. It wasn't enough. The AMRAAM's active radar seeker maintained its lock through the violent maneuver, and the missile detonated within lethal range of its target. A second red symbol disappeared from Sarah's display. 2 bandits remaining. They're turning defensive, she reported, already maneuvering for a follow-up shot. Phoenix, how's that SAM suppression coming? Third sight is down, working on the 4th now. You got about 3 minutes before the strike package reaches the IP. The 2 remaining enemy fighters had turned away from the engagement, diving toward the deck in an attempt to escape. Sarah followed them down, her F-35 superior energy management allowing her to maintain the pursuit. At 20,000 feet, she had a clear shot at the trailing MiG-29. Angel-01 Fox 2. This time she selected a heat-seeking Sidewinder missile, better suited for the close-range engagement. The infrared seeker locked onto the enemy fighter's hot exhaust and guided the missile to a direct hit. That's 3 bandits down, Martinez reported. 4th one is running for the border. Sarah pulled out of her dive and checked her tactical display. The immediate air threat was neutralized, 3 of the 4 SAM sites were destroyed, and the strike package was approaching their initial point on schedule. But the mission wasn't over yet. Angel Flight, reform on me. We need to provide escort for the strike package through the target area. The 4 F-35s rejoined in a loose formation, their fuel and weapon loads reduced, but their mission focused sharper than ever. Below them, the Nevada landscape stretched out in browns and greens, looking deceptively peaceful despite the simulated combat that had just taken place. Hammer Flight, this is Angel-01, Sarah transmitted on the strike frequency. Target area is sanitized. You're cleared to proceed to the target. Angel-01, Hammer Flight. Thanks for clearing the way. We'll take it from here. Sarah watched on her display as 8 F-16s and 2 B-1 bombers converged on the target area, their weapons already armed and ready for release. The mission that had seemed so dangerous just minutes before was now proceeding like clockwork, the result of careful planning and precise execution. The strike itself took less than 2 minutes. The bombers released their weapons first, massive bunker-busting bombs designed to penetrate deep underground fortifications. The F-16s followed with precision-guided munitions, each bomb guided by GPS coordinates to within a few feet of its intended target. All weapons on target, the strike leader reported. Target is destroyed. All flights, this is Hammer-01. Mission complete. All aircraft return to base. Sarah felt a wave of satisfaction wash over her as she turned her F-35 toward home. The mission had been a complete success. All targets destroyed, all enemy threats neutralized, and not a single friendly aircraft lost. It was the kind of flawless execution that Red Flag was designed to achieve. But even as her flight climbed back toward their cruising altitude, Sarah could hear the radio chatter from other flights in the exercise. Word of Angel Flight's performance was already spreading through the tactical frequencies. "Did you see that?" One pilot transmitted. "Angel Flight took out 4 SAM sites and 3 fighters in about 5 minutes." "Yeah, and Angel-01 was running the whole show," another voice replied. "That was some serious flying." As they approached Nellis Air Force Base for landing, Sarah allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. The whispers and doubts that had followed her for years seemed suddenly insignificant compared to the professional respect she had earned in 30 minutes of combat flying. "Angel Flight, contact Nellis approach on frequency 127.4, the controller instructed. Angel-01, switching. The landing was routine, for fighters touching down in sequence and taxiing back to their parking spots. As Sarah shut down her engines and completed her post-flight checks, she could see maintenance crews and other pilots gathering around the flight line, waiting to hear the details of the mission. Colonel Harrison was waiting for her as she climbed down from her aircraft, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Sarah wondered if there had been some problem with the mission that she wasn't aware of. "Outstanding work out there, Captain," Harrison said, extending his hand. That was textbook air superiority. The strike package didn't face a single threat during their run. "Thank you, sir. My wingmen did excellent work." "They did, but you were the flight lead. That was your mission to run, and you ran it perfectly." Harrison paused, looking directly at her. "I had some doubts about putting you in charge of close escort. I won't make that mistake again." As the colonel walked away, Sarah felt the last of her defensive walls come down. For the first time in her career, she wasn't fighting to prove that a woman could do the job. She was simply a pilot who had done the job exceptionally well. Martinez appeared at her elbow, his helmet tucked under his arm and a broad grin on his face. "So, Angel," he said, "think you can handle running another mission tomorrow?" "We'll see," Sarah replied, but she was smiling too. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new doubts to overcome, and new opportunities to prove herself. But for now, she was content to savor the moment when skill had triumphed over skepticism and when Angel had truly earned her wings. 3 days had passed since Angel Flight's perfect mission, and the atmosphere at Nellis Air Force Base had shifted dramatically. Where once Sarah had walked through hushed conversations and skeptical glances, she now found herself at the center of respectful nods and genuine professional interest. The success of that first Red Flag mission had opened doors that years of exemplary service records had left firmly closed. But Sarah knew better than to rest on her accomplishments. Red Flag was a 3-week exercise, and each mission was designed to be more challenging than the last. The aggressor forces learned from every engagement, adapting their tactics to counter the strategies that had proven effective. What worked on Monday might be suicide by Friday. The mission brief for Day 4 was significantly more complex than their first sortie. Intelligence indicated that the enemy had repositioned their remaining air defense assets and brought in additional fighter aircraft from outside the training area. The target was a heavily fortified command center deep in enemy territory, protected by overlapping SAM coverage and aggressive air patrols. "The threat picture has evolved," Colonel Harrison explained to the assembled pilots. "The enemy is no longer reacting to our moves. They're anticipating them. Expect advanced tactics, coordinated defensive measures, and sophisticated electronic warfare. Sarah studied the mission materials with the same meticulous attention she brought to every briefing. The route to the target required threading between multiple missile engagement zones, timing their approach to avoid overlapping radar coverage, and coordinating with electronic warfare aircraft to mask their movements. It was the kind of mission that demanded perfect execution from every pilot involved. Captain Thompson raised his hand during the question period. What's the backup plan if we lose the electronic warfare support? There is no backup plan, Harrison replied bluntly. If the EA-18 Growlers can't suppress the enemy radars, the mission is scrubbed. We're not going to lose aircraft for a training scenario. As the briefing concluded, Sarah noticed several pilots approaching her, not with the casual mockery of previous days, but with genuine requests for tactical advice. Lieutenant Colonel Jim Falcon Davidson, a veteran F-22 pilot with over 15 years of experience, stopped her near the door. Captain Shun, he said, I've been flying these exercises for 8 years, and that performance the other day was exceptional. Mind if I ask where you learned to manage a complex air battle like that? It was a question that cut to the heart of Sarah's professional development. Her success hadn't come from a single moment of inspiration, but from years of studying tactics, analyzing combat footage, and learning from every pilot she had ever flown with. Every mistake teaches you something, she replied. I've made plenty of them in training, so I wouldn't have to make them in combat. Davidson nodded thoughtfully. We could use that kind of thinking in our F-22 flights. Would you be interested in cross-briefing with us before tomorrow's mission? The invitation was unprecedented. F-22 Raptor pilots were widely considered the elite of the fighter community, and their willingness to learn from her was perhaps the greatest professional compliment Sarah had ever received. The pre-flight briefing for Angel Flight took place in the early morning hours, when the Nevada desert was still cool and the air was crystal clear. Sarah's wingmen had evolved from skeptical colleagues to a cohesive fighting unit, their confidence in her leadership evident in the way they absorbed her tactical guidance. Today's mission is going to test everything we've learned, she began, spreading her charts on the briefing table. The enemy knows our capabilities now, and they've adapted their defenses accordingly. We can't rely on stealth alone. We need to be smarter, faster, and more aggressive than we were last time. Lieutenant Johnson, no longer the nervous rookie of their first flight, leaned forward with obvious interest. What's different about their setup? They've moved their SAM sites to create interlocking fields of fire, Sarah explained, highlighting the threat rings on her map. Instead of isolated targets, we're looking at an integrated defense network. Take out one site, and the others immediately adjust their coverage to compensate. Rodriguez whistled softly. That's going to require some serious coordination. How do we crack a network like that? By attacking it from multiple directions simultaneously, Sarah replied. We can't give them time to react and adapt. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and overwhelm their ability to respond. The tactical plan she outlined was ambitious. 4 separate attack routes, time to converge on the target area within a 30-second window. Each F-35 would approach from a different direction, forcing the enemy defenses to split their attention and reducing the effectiveness of their coordinated response. It's going to require precise timing and absolute trust in each other, Sarah concluded. Any questions? Martinez raised his hand. What happens if one of us gets shot down or has to abort? It was the question every fighter pilot dreaded, but had to consider. In a complex coordinated attack, the loss of a single aircraft could cascade into mission failure or additional losses. We adapt and overcome, Sarah said simply. The mission comes first, but we don't leave anyone behind. If someone goes down, we abort the attack and extract. No training exercise is worth losing a pilot. The walk to the flight line was different this morning. Where before Sarah had noticed the whispers and sidelong glances, now she saw ground crews and other pilots watching with obvious respect. Word of Angel Flight's performance had spread throughout the base, and their reputation had preceded them to every corner of the red flag exercise. Chief Riley met her at the aircraft with his usual crisp professionalism, but there was something new in his demeanor, a pride that came from working with a pilot who had proven herself under pressure. Angel-01 is ready to hunt, he said with a grin. New software upload came in overnight. Threat library has been updated with the latest enemy tactics. Sarah completed her pre-flight inspection with extra care. Today's mission would push both pilot and aircraft to their limits, and there was no room for mechanical failure or pilot error. The F-35 responded to her checks like a thoroughbred racehorse, every system green and ready for combat. As she settled into the cockpit and ran through her startup procedures, Sarah felt the familiar calm that came with complete preparation. She had studied every aspect of the mission, briefed her flight to the smallest detail, and prepared contingencies for every conceivable problem. Now it's time to execute. Angel flight check-in. Angel-02, ready to fly. Angel-03, ready to fly. Angel-04, ready to fly. The taxi to the runway was routine, but Sarah could feel the tension building in her formation. This was no longer a prove-it mission for a female pilot trying to earn respect. This was elite aviators taking on the most challenging training scenario the Air Force could devise. Tower. Angel flight of 4, requesting takeoff clearance. Angel flight, winds calm, cleared for takeoff. Contact departure control when airborne. The 4 F-35s lifted off in perfect formation, climbing rapidly into the clear desert sky. As they reached their cruising altitude, Sarah could see the sprawling Nevada landscape stretching to the horizon, dotted with the geometric shapes of military installations and training areas. Red flag control. Angel flight level at flight level 350, proceeding to work area. Angel flight, red flag control. Threat update. Enemy air activity has increased significantly. Multiple bandits airborne and actively hunting. Electronic warfare environment will be severe. As if to emphasize the point, Sarah's cockpit displays suddenly flickered and showed momentary interference. The enemy electronic warfare systems were already active, probing for weaknesses in American aircraft and trying to disrupt their communications and navigation systems. All flights, this is Angel-01. Execute Plan Alpha in 5 minutes. Stay sharp and trust your training. The next few minutes passed in tense silence as the 4 fighters separated into their individual attack routes. Sarah's F-35 swung wide to the east, using a valley system to mask her approach from enemy radar. Her wingmen dispersed to their own attack corridors, disappearing into the electronic clutter that filled the airspace. At exactly 0847 hours, Sarah began her attack run. Her target was the Eastern SAM site, a mobile system that had relocated since the last intelligence update. The F-35's sensors probed ahead, searching for the telltale electronic emissions that would reveal the enemy's position. Angel-01 has contact. Eastern site is active. Beginning attack run. The missile site appeared on her display as she crested a ridgeline, perfectly positioned to engage aircraft approaching the target area. Sarah's computer calculated firing solutions, while her threat warning system remained silent. The enemy had not yet detected her approach. Angel-01, Fox 3. Her first missile streaked away toward the target, followed immediately by similar calls from her wingmen as they engaged their assigned objectives. For 30 seconds, the 4 missiles flew toward their targets, while the Angel flight pilots maintained their attack courses. Then, simultaneously, SAM sites disappeared from the threat display as precision-guided weapons found their marks. Multiple sites suppressed, Rodriguez reported. I'm seeing secondary explosions from the ammunition storage areas. But even as they celebrated their initial success, Sarah's threat warning system began screaming. Enemy fighter aircraft were vectoring toward their position, and the remaining SAM sites were coming online with targeting radars. Angel flight, we have multiple bandits inbound from the north. 6 contacts, probable MiG-29s and Su-27s. They're coming in fast and low. The enemy had learned from their previous encounters with Angel flight. Instead of approaching at high altitude, where the F-35's advantages were most pronounced, they were staying low, using terrain masking to avoid detection until the last possible moment. Angel flight, tactical formation. We're going to meet them head-on. What followed was 3 minutes of the most intense air combat any of them had ever experienced. Enemy fighters appeared and disappeared in the electronic clutter. Missiles flew in multiple directions, and the Nevada sky became a three-dimensional chessboard where a single mistake meant death. Sarah found herself in a turning fight with Su-27, the enemy pilot skillfully using his aircraft's superior maneuverability to try to gain a firing position. But the F-35's advanced sensors and helmet-mounted display gave her a crucial advantage, allowing her to track the enemy even when he disappeared behind her aircraft. Angel-01, Fox 2. The Sidewinder missile left her aircraft at close range, its infrared seeker immediately locking onto the Su-27's hot exhaust. The enemy pilot tried a last-second evasive maneuver, but it was too late. When the electronic smoke cleared, 6 enemy fighters had been engaged and destroyed, while Angel flight remained intact. The target area was clear, and the strike package was already inbound to complete their mission. As they flew back toward Nellis, Sarah reflected on the engagement. It had been perfect in its execution, for pilots working as a single unit, adapting to changing threats, and achieving complete victory against a numerically superior enemy. But, more importantly, it had been a demonstration that excellence in aviation had nothing to do with gender, politics, or preconceived notions. It was about skill, training, and the courage to execute under pressure. Tower. Angel flight requesting landing clearance. Angel-01, you're cleared to land. And Angel-01, the tower controller's voice carried a note of genuine admiration. Outstanding work out there. The whole base has been monitoring your frequency. As she touched down on the runway and taxied back to the flight line, Sarah could see crowds of pilots and ground personnel waiting to greet them. The whispers were gone, replaced by the respect that came from watching professionals perform at the highest level. Colonel Harrison was waiting at her parking spot, along with what appeared to be half the base's flying personnel. As she shut down her engines and removed her helmet, she could hear spontaneous applause from the crowd. "Captain Chun," Harrison said as she climbed down from her aircraft, "I've been flying fighters for 22 years, and that was one of the finest tactical performances I've ever witnessed." The call sign Angel would never again be spoken with mockery or doubt. She had transformed it from a symbol of skepticism into a mark of aerial excellence that would be remembered long after Red Flag 25-1 had concluded. In the competitive, demanding world of fighter aviation, Sarah Chun had proven that wings were earned through skill, not gender, and that angels could indeed be warriors. "There goes Angel," one of the maintenance crew muttered, not bothering to lower his voice. "Wonder how long before she washes out of Red Flag." Sarah kept her face neutral, her helmet bag slung over her shoulder with practiced ease. Red Flag was the most challenging air combat training exercise in the world, where the best pilots from around the globe came to test their skills against the most realistic combat scenarios the Air Force could create. For 3 weeks, pilots would face off against aggressor squadrons, flying enemy tactics, sophisticated surface-to-air missile systems, and electronic warfare that could blind their most advanced sensors. She had earned her spot here through years of flawless performance, graduating top of her class from the Air Force Academy, excelling in undergraduate pilot training, and proving herself in squadron after squadron. Yet somehow, her call sign Angel had become a source of mockery rather than respect. Angel, her wingman Captain Jake Martinez had explained during her first week with the 34th Fighter Squadron, "Because you fly like you're afraid to get your wings dirty." The squadron had erupted in laughter, and the name stuck. What they didn't understand was that Sarah's careful, methodical approach to flying wasn't about fear. It was about precision. The briefing room hummed with nervous energy as 48 pilots from 6 different nations settled into their seats. The mission commander, Colonel Rick Hammer Harrison, stood at the front with a laser pointer and a grim expression. Behind him, a massive screen displayed a map of the Nevada test and training range, marked with threat rings and target areas. "Gentlemen," Harrison began, his eyes briefly scanning the room and landing on Sarah and Lady. "Today's mission is Package Lima 7. High-value target deep in enemy territory, protected by integrated air defense systems that will make your previous training look like a video game." Sarah leaned forward, studying the display. The target was a simulated command bunker buried in the mountains, surrounded by SA-20 surface-to-air missile sites, fighter aircraft, and mobile radar systems designed to track and eliminate incoming threats. The route to the target wound through valleys and canyons, requiring precise navigation and split-second timing. Angel Flight will provide close escort for the strike package, Harrison continued, his voice carrying a hint of skepticism. "For F-35s tasked with suppressing enemy air defenses and maintaining air superiority during the attack phase." The room erupted in murmurs. Close escort was a critical mission, requiring pilots to fly directly into the teeth of enemy defenses to protect the strike aircraft. It was also traditionally assigned to the most experienced and trusted pilots in the exercise. Captain Brad Viper Thompson, leader of one of the F-16 flights, raised his hand. "Sir, with respect, shouldn't we put our most experienced pilots on close escort? This mission's going to be hot from the start." Harrison's jaw tightened slightly. Captain Chun has logged over 800 combat hours across 3 deployments. Her experience speaks for itself. "Combat hours in what?" Viper pressed, his tone carefully neutral but his meaning clear. "CS missions against guys with AK-47s isn't the same as going up against advanced surface-to-air systems." Sarah felt the familiar burn of anger in her chest but kept her expression steady. It was true that much of her combat time had been in close air support roles, protecting ground troops in Afghanistan and Iraq. But she had also flown combat air patrol missions over Syria, faced off against Russian electronic warfare systems, and successfully completed every advanced training course the Air Force offered. "The mission assignments are final," Harrison said firmly, cutting off any further discussion. "Brief your individual flights and be ready for takeoff at 0800 hours. As the room began to empty, Sarah gathered her notes and headed for the Angel Flight briefing area. Her 3 wingmen, Martinez, Captain Lisa Phoenix Rodriguez, and Lieutenant Mike Rookie Johnson, were already waiting. "So," Martinez said as she approached, "think you can handle running the show today, Angel?" "I've been handling it for 6 years," Sarah replied evenly, spreading her mission materials on the table. "Let's talk tactics." For the next hour, she walked them through the mission profile. The strike package would consist of 8 F-16s carrying precision-guided munitions, supported by 2 B-1 bombers for the initial strike. Angel Flight would enter the target area first, using their stealth capabilities and advanced sensors to identify and suppress air defense sites. "The key is timing," Sarah explained, tracing the route on her tablet. "We need to take out the SA-20 sites in sequence, creating a corridor for the strike aircraft. If we miss even one site, they'll have overlapping coverage that could down multiple aircraft." Rodriguez nodded thoughtfully. "What about the MiG-29s? Intelligence shows at least 4 aircraft on combat air patrol." "That's where precision comes in," Sarah said. "We use our stealth to get close, take out the air defenses first, then engage the fighters on our terms. No heroics, no ego. Just clean, efficient flying." Johnson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. At 24, he was fresh out of advanced training and clearly nervous about his first red flag mission. "Ma'am, what if the air defenses are more capable than intelligence suggests? What if they can track us despite our stealth?" It was a good question, and Sarah could see the concern in all their eyes. The aggressor forces at Red Flag were notorious for their advanced tactics and equipment, often surprising even veteran pilots. "Then, we adapt," she said simply. "That's what separates good pilots from dead pilots. We trust our training, we trust our aircraft, and we trust each other." Questions? There were none, but Sarah could sense the underlying tension. Her wingmen were competent pilots, but they were also products of a culture that questioned whether a woman could handle the pressure of air-to-air combat. She had faced this skepticism her entire career, and it had made her better than she ever thought possible. The walk to the flight line took 10 minutes, giving Sarah time to run through her mental checklist. Weather was clear, winds calm, perfect conditions for a complex mission. The F-35 sat in their hardened aircraft shelters like sleeping predators, their angular shapes both beautiful and menacing in the early morning light. Chief Master Sergeant Tom Riley, her crew chief, met her at the aircraft with a crisp salute. "Angel-01 is ready to fly, ma'am. All systems green, weapons loaded and checked." Sarah returned the salute and began her pre-flight inspection, running her hand along the aircraft surfaces and checking every access panel. The F-35 was a marvel of engineering, packed with sensors and weapon systems that made it the most capable fighter aircraft ever built. But it was also complex, and complexity bred failure points. "How's she feeling today, Chief?" Sarah asked as she completed her walk-around. "Like a racehorse at the starting gate," Riley replied with a grin. "She wants to run." Sarah climbed the ladder to the cockpit, settling into the ejection seat that had become as familiar as her own bedroom. The helmet came down with a soft click, and suddenly she was connected to the aircraft through fiber optic cables and data links. The heads-up display flickered to life, painting the world in green symbols and numbers. "Angel Flight, this is Angel-01, she transmitted on the tactical frequency. "Check-in. Angel-02 ready. Angel-03 ready. Angel-04 ready. Tower. Angel Flight requesting taxi clearance. Angel Flight, taxi to runway 27 via taxiway Alpha. Contact departure when ready." The four F-35s moved as a unit across the sprawling base, their engines producing a distinctive whine that set them apart from the older fighters. Sarah could see ground crews and other pilots stopping to watch as they passed. The Lightning II was still new enough to draw attention wherever it went. At the runway threshold, Sarah ran through her final checks. Engine parameters were nominal, weapons systems were armed and ready, and her wingmen were in perfect formation behind her. Through her helmet display, she could see their aircraft icons overlaid on her field of view, connected by dotted lines that showed their formation geometry. Departure control, Angel-01 flight of 4, ready for takeoff. Angel-01, winds 260 at 8 knots, cleared for takeoff. Contact red flag control on departure. Sarah advanced the throttle and felt the F-35's powerful engine push her back in her seat. The aircraft accelerated smoothly down the runway, and at exactly the right moment, she pulled back on the stick and felt the nose lift toward the sky. Behind her, 3 more fighters followed in perfect sequence, their formation tight and professional. Red flag control, Angel Flight airborne, climbing to flight level 300. Angel Flight, red flag control. You are cleared to the work area. Threat picture will be uploaded in 30 seconds. As they climbed toward their assigned altitude, Sarah felt the familiar calm that always came over her once she was airborne. The doubts and whispers from the ground faded away, replaced by the pure focus of flying. Up here, gender meant nothing. Political correctness meant nothing. The only thing that mattered was skill, and she had that in abundance. The threat display updated on her screen, showing a complex picture of enemy forces. Red triangles marked known surface-to-air missile sites, while moving symbols indicated fighter aircraft on patrol. The target area was heavily defended, exactly as briefed. Angel Flight, tactical formation. Rodriguez and Johnson split to the north. "Martinez, you're with me. We're going hunting." The four F-35s spread out into a wide formation, using their stealth characteristics and advanced sensors to probe the enemy defenses. Sarah's aircraft picked up the first radar emission, an SA-20 guidance radar, sweeping the sky in search of targets. Angel-02, I have a SAM site bearing 095, range 60 miles. Moving to engage. Angel-01, copy. Phoenix, take the northern site. Rookie, watch our 6 for bandits. This was the moment Sarah had trained for her entire career. In the next 30 minutes, she would either prove that she belonged among the elite pilots of Red Flag, or she would become another cautionary tale about lowering standards. The enemy was waiting, their weapons were armed, and 47 other pilots were watching to see if Angel could back up her reputation with results. She rolled into a shallow dive, her F-35 cutting through the thin air like a sword. Behind her, her wingmen followed in perfect formation, ready to engage an enemy that had no idea death was approaching at Mach 1.2. The mission had begun, and there was no turning back.